Kate Olivia O'Brien is an actress in New York City. For her, every day is different. She has performed in Shakespearean plays, pantomimes, and one-woman shows. Today, she is performing in A Midsummer Night's Dream, and later this week, she's rehearsing and performing for another play. But it wasn't always this way. She has only lived in New York for a year. Before that, she had a very different job in London.
I was a talent agent in London. It sounds very exciting, but it was very, very stressful. I worked in an office from 9:30 in the morning to 6:30 in the evening. After work, I often went to TV studios for recordings that lasted hours. Even when I was at home, I had to phone and email people all the time. It was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I have dual citizenship, so it was easy for me to move from England to the States. I went to university in California where I studied theatre and creative writing. So I decided to move somewhere different, and New York seemed like the perfect place. I love it here. It's a fantastic city and a great place to be an actor. I can be very creative here, which was very difficult in my old job. In my old job, every day was the same, but as an actor, I'm able to work and do all kinds of different things. I really enjoy the process, and I work with a lot of talented people.
But was it difficult for Kate to start a new job in a new city?
The New York acting scene is very different to London, and it's always hard to live in a big city when you don't know it very well. I was very nervous when I started, but I had a few friends in New York and they helped a lot. I meet a lot of new people in my work too, and of course, New York is a very exciting city, so it's easy to have fun here.
Welcome to the theater.
Hi, I'm Kate.
I'm Hamilton.
But acting isn't easy.
Ye choice spirits that admonish me and give me signs of future accidents.
You're a little girl and you go to the movies. Maybe you talk to your mother. You definitely
I have to go to a lot of auditions, and I must always perform as well as I can. The work is very irregular too, and I miss my old salary. In London, I didn't have to think about money, but as an actor, I never know when and where I'm going to work. This also means I can't book many holidays because I won't always be able to go.
So, does she regret her decision?
I'm my own boss, so I have a lot more control over my life. But the most important thing is I'm doing what I want to do. I enjoy every day, and although acting is difficult, I always look forward to the challenge. So I definitely made the right choice.
This is Arizona State University, a major research university with almost 60,000 students. The Arizona State Sun Devils represent the university in many different sports. They have some of the best sports teams in the USA. They have teams in baseball, basketball, running, swimming, golf, and many other sports. These teams attract some of the greatest athletes in the country. Ike Davis, a professional first baseman who has played for the New York Mets and the Pittsburgh Pirates, was a huge star on the baseball team. Terrell Suggs, who won NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 2011, played for the football team. Phil Mickelson, one of the most famous golfers in the world, won several amateur golf championships while he was a student here. ASU attracted top athletes like Phil Mickelson through sports scholarships. Education in the USA is very expensive. At Arizona State, the average annual cost for a student is about $24,000. This includes tuition fees, books, and the general cost of living. Because of these costs, many students need financial assistance. If they don't receive this help, then they won't be able to finish their degrees. It's no surprise then that around 83% of students here receive some kind of grant. And each year, universities and colleges spend around $1 billion on sports scholarships. They invest in facilities and equipment too. Arizona State, for example, has one of the country's best swimming and diving facilities. It has an 18-hole golf course and a 71,706-seater stadium, the Sun Devil Stadium. There's also a softball stadium, a soccer stadium, and the Wells Fargo Arena, home to the Sun Devils basketball team. But why do universities like Arizona State invest so much on sports? College sports are very popular in the United States. College football, for example, is the second biggest spectator sport in the country. Sporting success is a great advertisement for the university, so if they do well on the playing field, they will attract the best students. It's great for young athletes too. The scholarship program gives them a chance to go to university. If they do well, they might become professional athletes. If they don't, they'll still have a degree. Many of today's professional athletes began their career at college. So for universities like Arizona State, sport is big business. Social media has changed the world we live in. Over 1 billion people are on social media sites such as Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And many of them use it every day. It is now the most popular activity on the internet. People spend 1/4 of their online time on a social network, and mobile technology means people can access their social media accounts from anywhere at any time. So, people are living more of their lives, especially their social lives, online. This means that people now have a detailed record of much of their lives, because social networks record what people say, when they say it, and where they say it. But a lot of this information is rarely in one place. This is where Esplorio can help. Esplorio brings together all your social media content to create a travel diary. It shows everywhere you have been and lets you click on a location. Once you create an account, you can connect your social networks. Esplorio then turns all your information into a travel diary. Tim Fernando started the company when he was at university, and Isa Salat joined later. Tim travelled a lot, but found that his photos were all on different social media sites. So he invented a website that collected them all in one place. he took his idea to ISIS Innovation, a company that turns the university's most exciting research into successful business ideas. They gave Tim and Isa a place to work and helped them develop their product. They also helped create a business strategy. In the future, Esplorio are going to expand. They're introducing a recommendations tool next year. The website will use your current information to suggest where you might want to go in the future. Esplorio is just one example of the social media explosion. Entrepreneurs like Tim and Isa are starting new social media companies all the time, all over the world. Some will only last a few months, but some will change the way we live and work. And one thing is for sure, this phenomenon isn't going to end soon.
Hi, I'm Catherine. Today, I'm in the small English village of Nettlebed. I'm here to see the childhood home of Ian Fleming. Fleming was a very successful writer with an extraordinary life. If you haven't heard of him, you've almost certainly heard of his most famous creation, James Bond. Fleming wrote 14 James Bond books in his lifetime. These books were made into films, and James Bond became a global phenomenon. But Ian wasn't the only writer in his family. In fact, for a lot of Ian's life, his older brother Peter was much more successful. Peter Fleming was a British adventurer and travel writer. He wrote a series of travel books about his adventures in Brazil and Asia. The books were very popular and have sold well ever since. When they were young, Peter and Ian spent a lot of time here in Joyce Grove. Joyce Grove is a large manor house in Nettlebed. It belonged to Peter and Ian's grandparents. When they were young, the boys came here all the time. They loved exploring the house's large garden and woods. As boys, they were very similar. They were both adventurous and just as competitive as each other. Peter and Ian became close friends after their father's death, but there was always competition too. Both boys went to Eton, a very expensive school near London. Peter was more academic than Ian, but Ian was sportier, excelling at athletics. After school, Peter went to university and graduated with a first-class degree in English. Ian left school early. He became a journalist, and then he became a stockbroker. But he didn't do very well at either. As Ian failed to become a journalist or a banker, his brother became a famous travel writer. During the war, both Ian and Peter worked in intelligence. This experience had a big influence on both of them, and when the war ended, they both wrote books about the secret services. Peter was first. He was living here on the family estate when he wrote the 6th column, an espionage novel set in post-war Britain. He dedicated the book to Ian. Then he encouraged his publisher to print Ian's first James Bond book, Casino Royale. Peter influenced a lot of Ian's writing. He often edited Ian's work and even suggested character names like Miss Moneypenny. They were very close friends until Ian died in 1964. Peter himself died 7 years later in 1971. He is buried here in the churchyard, less than half a mile from the house where he grew up with Ian.
Liz Conibert works at Cranfield School of Management as a personal assistant to the International Development Director, and also as the Administrator for International Development.
The tasks I perform tend to fall into two areas. There are the tasks, traditional PA-related tasks, and these include things like organising travel for my boss. This can be booking flights, making hotel reservations, setting up meetings for him, sorting out his insurance, his currency needs. The other half of my job as the International Development Administrator, I do have more involvement there with organising the main study tours that the students go on in June each year.
What do you do on a typical day?
When I first come in, obviously there's the normal tasks, mainly checking emails and things these days and responding to those. And then maybe if my boss is in, he doesn't always come into the office. If he's in, I would normally meet up with him to discuss anything that needs to be done, particularly maybe he has travel to organise. And then I just have to get on really and do the work.
What do you like about your job?
I do like the atmosphere that revolves around the university. There's always something going on. It's very buzzy. And the atmosphere is always quite positive. We have a lot of international students, more than 50% probably now, so it's always interesting to meet people from different cultures as well.
What do you dislike about your job?
There aren't many things that I dislike. I really enjoy the job generally. Sometimes it's difficult to get things done quickly. You have to get several people to sign things or to authorise things, and sometimes this can take a while. So sometimes if you have something urgent, it can be a problem to get things sorted out quickly.
Dubai is a wealthy city. When it first became part of the independent United Arab Emirates, most of this money came from oil. But Dubai didn't have as much oil as its neighbours, so it concentrated on trade and finance. This policy has made the city an international centre of business and commerce. This economic success has also made Dubai a very popular tourist destination. Tourists come here to see buildings like the Burj Al Arab, the only 7-star hotel in the world, and the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest structure. But the majority of tourists come for the shopping. The city's shopping centres are some of its most popular tourist attractions. Dubai Mall, at the base of the Burj Khalifa, is the largest shopping centre in the world. It has 1,200 shops and attracts more than 750,000 visitors every week. Consumers can buy almost anything here. There are a lot of clothes shops, gadget shops, and some fantastic department stores. But the Dubai Mall doesn't just sell consumer goods, it sells a whole shopping experience. You can find many of these shops in other major cities, but only Dubai's malls offer so many other attractions. This is the secret to Dubai's success as a shopping destination. Dubai is a very hot country, so people often spend a lot of their time in these air-conditioned malls. And they don't just come here to shop, they come here to socialize too. The Dubai Mall is also a center of leisure and entertainment. In fact, some of the city's most popular tourist attractions are based here. This is the mall's Dubai Aquarium. The mall uses it for its incredible collection of 140 types of sea creatures. Dubai Mall also has the best in multimedia entertainment. It has got 22 cinema screens. And in Sega Republic, there are 14 exciting attractions with more than 170 games. There's an Olympic-sized ice rink too. It's in the middle of the complex. People come here to skate and to cool down. Dubai Mall is open late, so many visitors come here in the evening. They eat, meet friends, and watch the mall's world-famous fountain show. It's easy to see why the Dubai Mall is such a popular tourist destination. This is New York's Koreatown. And Korea Way, a small part of 32nd Street between 5th Avenue and Broadway, is the heart of the neighborhood. This area of New York is close to the Empire State Building, Madison Square Garden, and Penn Station. So a lot of tourists walk through here. This makes it a great place to do business, which many Koreans realized when they immigrated here in the 1980s. Soon the area was full of Korean shops, supermarkets, and lots of restaurants. Today, Koreatown is a bright and bustling part of New York. And if you want to try traditional Korean food, it's the best place in the city. This is Miss Korea Barbecue. They make authentic Korean food using traditional Korean methods. And one of their most popular meals is japchae. Japchae is an old Korean dish. The word is actually two Korean words. Jap means mixed, and chae means vegetables. It was first made over 400 years ago, and today it's one of the most popular dishes in Korea. It's also a favorite in Korean restaurants abroad. So the chefs here at Miss Korea Barbecue are really good at making it. First of all, the peppers, onions, and courgettes are prepared. These vegetables are then added to the pan. Then they are all fried together over a large flame. While the vegetables are being cooked, the noodles are boiled. These noodles are made from sweet potato, but the chefs here make many different types. As the noodles are boiling, the dish is seasoned and sauce is added. Once they are ready, they are all mixed in the wok. Finally, the chefs leave everything for a few minutes because japchae isn't served hot. It's served at room temperature. This is the traditional recipe, but it can be made in different ways. Some people add spices to make it hot and spicy, while others add herbs to make it more savory. Whichever way you prefer it, japchae, like most Korean food, is healthy and delicious.
Hi, I'm Toby. Today I'm visiting King's Cross, a new development in the centre of London. There are building sites like this all over the city.
Traditionally, most of London's buildings weren't very tall. For over 300 years, St Paul's Cathedral was the city's tallest building. In the 60s and 70s, some property developers built towers, but for most of the 20th century, London's buildings weren't as tall as other major cities.
Over the last 15 years, this has changed. London is now one of the world's most important financial centres, and its population is growing.
The city is expanding all the time. Its new businesses need new offices, and its new residents need new houses. Suddenly, there are skyscrapers everywhere. When the Shard opened in the summer of 2012, it was the tallest building in Europe with 87 floors. It is over 300 meters high, has 306 flights of stairs, and on the outside there are 11,000 glass panels. Like many of London's skyscrapers, the Shard is a multi-purpose building. It is a home, a workspace, and a tourist attraction. It has offices, apartments, several restaurants, a 5-star hotel, and at the top there's a 360-degree viewing platform. This is another iconic London tower. Its official name is 30 St Mary Axe, but everybody calls it the Gherkin because of its unusual structure. It isn't the tallest building in the city, but it's an important part of London's architecture. It has 41 floors, and you can find some of London's biggest businesses here. It has become a symbol of the city.
Buildings like the Shard and the Gherkin have completely changed London's skyline. This famously low-rise city now has some of the most famous skyscrapers in the world.
And building isn't stopping. Property developers are planning to build over 200 towers around the city. But many Londoners disagree with these plans. They say the city can meet the demands of a growing population without towering skyscrapers.
This new development at King's Cross is a great example of this. The developers here are building 2,000 homes, 20 streets, 10 public squares and 50 workspaces. Around 35,000 people will work here, but they aren't building any towers.
A major part of the development is Google's new headquarters. It will be larger than the Shard, but it will only have 11 floors. Instead, it will be 330 meters long and will sit on a 2.5-acre site. People are still arguing over London's development. The towering Shard and the lower but longer Google HQ show each side of this argument.
People will probably never completely agree on this, but it will be interesting to see how London's skyline changes in the future.
The European Union is a group of European countries that cooperate politically and economically. It began in 1956 when 6 European countries, Belgium, France, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands and West Germany, set up the European Economic Community. These countries were still suffering after the Second World War. They knew that if they worked together, each country could improve its own economy and make Europe a more stable place to live. The benefits of this economic and political union were soon obvious, and other countries wanted to join. The EEC began to expand. In 1993, the European Economic Community became the European Union, and since then, it has continued to grow. Today, the Union is the largest economy in the world, accounting for 20% of global imports and exports. But becoming a member isn't easy. If a country wants to join, it needs to pass several tests. It needs to guarantee democracy and human rights and show it has a strong economy. Membership of the EU also needs the backing of the people. If a country's population voted against membership, then that country wouldn't be allowed in. But once a country becomes a member, they can participate at all levels of the Union. This is the headquarters of the European Council in Brussels. The leaders of each member state meet here at least twice every 6 months. While they are here, they agree on the EU's goals. The European Commission suggests new legislation that will achieve these goals. Each member state has a commissioner, and each commissioner is in charge of a different department. The European Parliament discusses and votes on new legislation proposed by the Commission. Each country elects its own members of European Parliament. These are 3 of the EU's main institutions, but the EU is much bigger than this. It can be very complicated too. After all, it isn't easy to please every country. Some countries, for example, believe the EU has too much power and that each country should have more control over its own laws and regulations. But other countries want the EU to have more power. They believe a stronger union is better for each individual country. But in general, the EU has been a success. It has encouraged a spirit of cooperation and collaboration on a continent that used to be much more divided. As its motto says, these nations are all united in diversity. Everything about Beijing is big and busy. It's a bustling metropolis that covers 16 districts over almost 17,000 square kilometers. As the country's capital, Beijing is China's political and cultural center. You can find the country's government buildings, its biggest businesses, and many of its most famous landmarks here. And everywhere you look, there are people. Beijing has got a population of over 21 million people. Every day they cross the city to get home, get to work, or get to school. A city this busy needs an efficient transport network. But Beijing is an ancient city with very narrow streets, too narrow for today's traffic. Many people choose to cycle around the city. But to get somewhere faster, they can use the Beijing subway. This fast rail network is the oldest metro system in China. It started in 1969 with one line that was 24 kilometers long. Today, it has 17 lines with almost 465 kilometers of track. Each week, around 10 million people use the subway. It is one of the busiest and most crowded metro systems in the world. The population of Beijing is growing all the time. Experts predict it will continue to grow. So the Chinese government are going to expand the railway. But this won't be easy and will take a lot of work. The plan is to have 30 lines with 450 stations and over 1,000 kilometers of track. Beijing isn't the only city in China expanding its metro system. All over the country, cities are building or improving their subways. By 2050, the country will account for almost half of the world's metro lines. But Beijing will still be one of the busiest and the biggest in the country.
Hello and welcome to Dundee. It's a small city on the east coast of Scotland, where the River Tay meets the North Sea. The city has a long history of building boats, and the city's most famous ship is the RRS Discovery. In 1900, the British government wanted a boat that could explore the undiscovered continent of Antarctica. They built a boat with sails and steam engines that was so strong it could sail through large blocks of ice. On the 6th of August 1901, Discovery left the UK. After a 5-month journey via Cape Town and Lyttelton Harbour in New Zealand, the ship arrived on the coast of Antarctica on the 8th of January 1902. Some of Britain's most adventurous explorers, Captain Robert Falcon Scott and the third officer Ernest Shackleton, were on board. There were scientists too, who wanted to learn more about the area's plants and animals. When they arrived, this group of scientists, sailors and explorers made a camp. They built a large hut where they lived and worked. It was all going well, but while they were working, the Antarctic ice froze around Discovery. The ship didn't break, but the crew couldn't leave. They needed to wait for the ice to melt. While they were waiting, Scott and Shackleton left camp and tried to walk to the South Pole. They walked through storms and blizzards, but unfortunately they didn't reach the pole. But they survived, and when they returned to camp, 2 ships, Morning and Terra Nova, were there to help them. After 2 years in freezing conditions, the Discovery crew sailed home. On the 10th of September 1904, the ship arrived back in London. The crew quietly returned home, but soon the story of the expedition became famous, and Captain Scott became a national hero. Both Scott and Shackleton later returned to Antarctica. On one of Shackleton's expeditions, his ship, Endurance, sank. He and a small group spent 5 days in a lifeboat. Finally, they reached South Georgia, where they contacted the Navy to send help. And one of the boats that came to the rescue? The RRS Discovery. Discovery became a symbol of British heroism. For years, it was a popular tourist attraction in London. But in 1986, Discovery returned home to Dundee, where it is part of the city's history and culture.
Deserts, lakes, mountains, and volcanoes. This incredible landscape makes Chile very popular with tourists. But what do? Some tourists visit cities like Santiago, the capital of Chile. Others travel north to see the Atacama Desert, the driest desert in the world. But many tourists travel south to a small town called Pucón, Chile's adventure sports capital. Pucón is a fantastic destination for anybody interested in adventure sports. This small city has a population of around 20,000 people. It's between a volcano and a lake, so there are lots of different sports and activities here. What kinds of activities? It depends on the season. In summer, many tourists climb to the top of Villarrica volcano. The volcano is almost 3,000 meters high, so these hikes aren't easy. At the bottom of the volcano is Lake Villarrica, a popular location for water sports, including sailing, rafting, and water skiing. Every year, around 70,000 tourists visit the lake. They often come here to Playa Blanca, a peaceful location with warm, clear waters and a beautiful forest. Some visitors go up to Trancura River, where they can kayak down some of the best rapids in Chile. But at the moment, the volcano, the lake, and the river are quiet. This is because it's winter, and most people here are skiing. This is Ski Pucón, a small resort on the slopes of Villarrica volcano. There are 20 different runs here for all kinds of skiers and snowboarders. These slopes cover a drop of 900 meters, and there are 9 ski lifts to take visitors to the top. From here, the peak of the volcano towers over the whole resort. And as you travel towards it, you can sometimes see steam rising from the crater. From the top, there are amazing views of the lake and the surrounding mountains. It's an incredible landscape to ski in. Visitors to Pucón enjoy lots of different adventure sports. In the summer, they hike up the volcano or spend time on the lake. In the winter, they race down the volcano's slopes, either on skis or snowboards. And whatever the season, they can always enjoy the beautiful scenery.